Quake brought down buildings late on Friday night. Witnesses say people are trapped under the rubble. Thousands of residents fled out into the streets and spent the night outside as officials warned of possible aftershocks. The Interior Ministry says all available resources have been activated. The US Geological Survey says the 6.8 magnitude quake was one of the strongest to hit the region in more than a century, and daylight or daybreak is still over an hour and a half away. All right, joining me now is David Wald. He's a seismologist with the US Geological Survey. Great to have you on and your expertise. So a magnitude 6.8 earthquake, what can you tell us about the strength of that magnitude? What is its potential?
Well, the important thing is the proximity of the shaking to the population. So it's a moderate size earthquake, but it's shallow and it's in an area that's fairly populated. So that's a problem. The other component that leads to a disaster, of course, is the vulnerability of the buildings, and we're starting to see that now in the news that you're presenting. There's a lot of vulnerable structures, homes, adobe block, unreinforced concrete, and concrete frames that, with this level of shaking that was reached, are quite vulnerable.
Tell us what we know about what the region is like in terms of seismic activity, because apparently it's the biggest earthquake, in a century.
That's right, but only by a small amount. And some of the earlier events in Morocco in 1960 and 2004, while smaller, were in more populated areas, so they created quite a bit of problems. In 1960, there was 13,000 fatalities from an earthquake closer to Agadir that was obviously heavily populated. So this earthquake's between Agadir and Marrakesh to the northeast, and it's less populated, but it's a large earthquake. So there's a trade-off between the size of the earthquake and the population.
Yeah, go on. No, carry on.
Well, the whole region, northern Africa, is prone to earthquakes, and historically there've been many earthquakes of this size, and depending on exactly where it is with respect to the cities, that's what leads to devastating consequences.
So explain for us, the epicenter is obviously important, but also the depth of the earthquake. You said this was reasonably shallow. What does that cause?
Well, the shallowness makes it more proximal to the population. So a deep earthquake's going to attenuate the shaking before it reaches the surface. Shallow earthquakes create stronger shaking in the epicentral region, and that's what we're seeing right now. So this was felt all over Morocco, into north into Spain and even Portugal, and south into Algeria. So very wide footprint of shaking. But the strongest shaking was certainly in the Atlas Mountains in the epicentral region, although we see damage in Marrakesh, which is, I think, 75 kilometers away.
Okay, tell us what the region can expect in the hours and days to come in terms of aftershocks, further activity.
Right, so far we've only recorded one magnitude, close to 5, 4.9 aftershock. There's certainly more aftershocks happening that are below our threshold. We'll expect those to continue, and perhaps more magnitude 5 and even larger earthquakes are possible. And so the challenge here is that, of course, this happened at 11 o'clock at night. A lot of people were inside at the time, and overnight it's hard to get a lot of information back from the field, and I think we'll see casualties and losses grow as we see daylight.
Yeah, and one thing we're looking at the video that you were referencing before about some of these buildings that have at least been damaged or partially tumbled down. And you do make the point, it really does depend where it is, doesn't it? Because there's so many historic buildings in Morocco, old buildings, and not built to standards. They've been around for a long time, but not built to standards we see today.
That's right. There's, the vintage of the structures is one factor, but also the type of construction, and a number of the types of construction here are extremely vulnerable, even with some of the newer structures.